Hello guys, and welcome to part 8 of tutorial Let's Make an RPG. And today we'll be doing classes. As you can see, we have code from previous tutorial, and what we're gonna do is create 3 different classes. First one will be our main class, which will pretty much glue everything together. Second class, well, first class will do for example, we'll contain this while loop, and we'll set up SDL. Then we'll have SDL class, which will be actually doing the setting up the SDL. And finally, we'll have our third class, which would be sprite class, which will do all the sprite creation. All of you are not really familiar with classes. They're used mainly for 2 reasons. At least I use them for 2 reasons. One is to organize code. For example, I can make, basically with our sprite class, we'll be able to create a sprite with just calling one line, and to do all of this for us. It's only, you can say you can do this with functions, but with classes are really organized way to do this. Really organized. So, and they are you would really need to understand them, because they are really big part of C++ programming. Okay, next. So, to get the concept of a class, most people most likely understand this who are watching this. But mainly class could be for example, it could be a car, and then you could have variables inside like engine, wheels, and other parts of the car. But for example, in our RPG, we'll have class main character, and it will have stuff like variables like health, weapon, gear, and it will have more variables which probably you wouldn't expect, like a texture, X position, Y position, width, height. Do also contain functions, since classes can contain functions, so it's gonna contain functions that allow you to set up the character, and like getting X position, Y position, setting the position of the character. We'll probably have checking collision if character collides with anything else. So yeah, first we'll create 2 classes that first we'll create just one class and get everything working. Basically, after creating our main class and SDL class, it's gonna do exactly the same as the code. The code will do exactly the same thing as it does now, except it's gonna be organized and it'll be easier to use, because you can imagine this will get really confusing once we get bigger game going. So first let's create class, and then I'll explain parts of the class. We can create a class quite easily by going right click on headers, for example, and going to add a class. So we're gonna add it. Here we're gonna name it. It's good to have naming scheme for this, but for example, we're gonna create our main class that will glue everything together. So we can call it main class. But what I usually like to do is put C in front, and as you can see, C doesn't appear here, but if I type, for example, anything else, it appears. Even lowercase c, but capital C never appears, because that's Visual Studio's way of, they have it's easier to name classes that way for them, because you name class with C, so it stands for class. So we can call it CMain, and it will create .h and .cpp files called main instead of CMain. But in code we'll call it CMain. but the files will be called this. It's pretty confusing, but basically classes are made of two parts: header files and CPP files. CPP files contain all the code, functions, and all that, and header files are more like they store what functions the class contains, what variables it contains. And then so first you say, oh, it contains get X position, so it gets X position of the first of all character or the sprite. So and here we'll do the code for getting X position. Okay, so and you can choose the pop. Just don't change anything here. So yeah, so it will create those two files when we click finish. So you can see you have main.h and main.cpp. Well, you could have written this ourselves and just right-clicked, add new item, and then you could do. Yeah, so you can create the CP files in the date. So we could have just named it main and then main here as well, and we'll have those two files. But then we'll have to type this manually. But let me explain what this does. This basically means this will only run once, which is actually technically this should be here, because this should only ever run once, even if I call this again. So yes, put that here. Okay, and then each class will always have two functions minimum, which are those two. This is called constructor. Constructor is a function that runs when a class is created. You can add variables to it and stuff, but for now we'll use this and this as well. This is destructor. Destructor runs when class is destroyed. This is good for using, like, getting rid of the memory from pointers, like deleting stuff, because when the class is deleted, we delete any pointer related in this function. Just like we did here. But I'll show you that later. Show you guys that later. Okay, and in CPP files, as you can see, we have those two functions, and we can put the code inside here for those two functions. So, for example, if you want to create another function, for example, we can create function. Well, what function will we need? Let's go here. Basically, now we'll like pick some of the code and put it inside those two files to make it more organized. We're gonna create a function called main loop or loop. Let's call it loop. Or main loop. Wait, better name. Main loop, and then which is oh, maybe no, never mind. Let's call it game loop. That sounds better. So it's gonna be void, and it doesn't take any parameters. So this means that this class contains this function. Now, if you want to use this function, well, not use but run, what happens when you run this function? You'll have to type in here void c main, and then as you can see, this pops up with game loop already because it knows the header file contains it. And we open the bracket and close like this. You can put void inside here. This is exactly the same. For good program practice, it's better to have void in, but I don't think it makes much difference or any. Okay, so we have the game loop. Now we're gonna go back here, and we are going to copy. We are going to. The game loop will contain this, but first we need this quit. So let's copy this. don't delete anything of this file for now. We'll delete it later. So if you want to create variables, you can simply do it like this, but you can't make anything equals to something in here. So it equals false, but we're just gonna simply do that. So this means this contains the boolean that is quit. That is named quit. The problem with variables, they should be made private. Like you should make them private. Don't worry if you don't know what it means, I'll explain it later. But any functions, make them public. Well, you don't have to make them public, but if you want to use them outside of this class, make them public. And variables should not be made public because it will make your game easier to hack, for example. So also it's not good programming practice because sometimes someone could use it and it's not meant to be used that way, for example. Okay, so we have the quit variable. If you want to declare it, we simply put it in the constructor. Not declare it, but set it up. So we're gonna do quit equals false. So as you can see, it already knows what quit is because we created quit here. And we can still access it because it's the same class. So now we are going to copy. We are going to need the window as well. So we're gonna copy this.